Hey guys, it's Ken here from Whistleberry Arts once again, and I shoot my junk. Today we're going to be talking about something that is kind of, a bit touchy, I think, in some people's eyes, and that is bootleg figures. Now, I know that there's a lot of third-party retailers out there, and they sell secondhand material or unofficial material, stuff like that. And sometimes they're not bad, and sometimes they're not great. And I want to talk about one that I bought not too long ago that is not great. Now, I bought it from AliExpress, which I'm sure if you're a toy collector or a toy photographer, you're familiar with it. And it is a third-party kind of off-brand sort of site, and you get some cheap deals and hard to find figures and things like that. But it is a little bit hit and miss whether you're going to get the real deal or whether you're going to get something that's a knockoff. So, for example, in my episode 1, I actually did a review on the Mezco 112 Popeye figure. And it's an excellent figure. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. I bought it on AliExpress as well. It was a little cheaper than I could find it anywhere else, and it was a gamble, but it paid off. It's a legit figure. If it's not a legit figure, then I think that it is a really high quality knockoff. So I've got no questions or concerns about that figure. However, I did also buy, not too long ago, the Christopher Reeve Superman figure, the first one, the Neca. And it is not good. It is a bad knockoff. Again, sometimes you get a decent knockoff. This did not hold up. So today, whatever your feelings about these third-party retailers might be, I want to show you this silly and ridiculous version of the Man of Steel that I got from a third-party retailer. But let's talk about the Man of Steel. So this is the Christopher Reeve 1978 Superman Neca figure, again, third party, and this is what it looked like coming out of the box. It's pretty bare bones as far as accessories go. It's the figure himself, of course, and just a pair of hands, fists, and I'll call them flight hands. So let's look at the sculpt. First of all, it's actually not too bad. It's a pretty decent likeness. I assume that it was cast from an authentic figure. The body sculpt is okay. It's got pretty decent definition. The S is big and bright, and there's no real paint flaws. The hand sculpts are pretty good. There's actually some pretty decent little detail in there. You get some veins in the hands, so it's not a bad little sculpt. The boot sculpt is actually quite nice. You get some wrinkles in the boots and some details in the, I don't know what you want to call that, but the design around the top of the boots. It's actually pretty good. The hair looks nice. Overall, it's a pretty decent sculpt. There's a bit of texture to the fabric, what would be the fabric of his costume, and I like that as well. The one thing that I really like about this particular figure, though, it is the Christopher Reeve figure, and it does include the S on the back of the cape, which most modern Superman figures just don't have. And that's actually a nice applique. It's on there pretty good. It's not going to peel off anytime soon. Nice and bright and bold. It's not blurry or anything. It's a really nice design that goes on the back of the cape. The cape itself is pretty flimsy. Again, I don't have the authentic figure to compare it to, but this fabric is actually pretty thin. It's not wired, so there's absolutely no way to pose this easily. Also, the way the cape drapes over the back of the figure, it's just kind of loose. There's no trimming or anything like that here, so there's nothing really remarkable about the back of that cape. So he's got some pretty good articulation as far as, moving parts go. They're a little bit stiff, so you have to kind of work at it a little bit. The plastic itself is fairly cheap, so you don't want to put too much pressure on this guy, because I'm afraid everything is going to snap off, and I'll show you why in just a few seconds. But his arms, they go up, they go out okay, but you can see some flaws in the molding. You wouldn't see these little flaws here in his armpit. You wouldn't see those kinds of obvious blemishes in an authentic figure. So there's clue number one that this is kind of a cheap knockoff. I mean, it's very obvious, but same thing with his legs. They go out okay. They don't really have too much movement moving forward and backward. Big gaps here that I don't think you would see on the authentic figures. His knees, they're actually not too bad. They bend back and forth and they swivel. So that's kind of nice. Same with his feet, right? There's not a whole lot of play back and forth, but they do swivel, so there's some opportunity for moving and posing. Head, it doesn't go up very high, so if you're trying to have him fly, you can't have him flying sort of toward the camera because his head doesn't go upwards enough. So he's looking down or straight ahead, but not really upwards. So that kind of sucks. The biggest problem with this figure is this. Now, no matter what you do, if I don't hold on to the torso and I'm trying to make him do anything, this torso pops off from the bottom half of his body. And it pops right back on, but it doesn't stay. There's no articulation as far as moving back and forth because the torso just keeps falling off. As far as the hands go, the same thing. They're very, very cheap hinging right here, but the hand pops off. Not too bad, except I just broke it. You can see, if you can see there's like a little peg right here that should go right through that little hole. So what I've just effectively done is broken that flight hand. So I'll put the fist on there. Kind of pops in, not too bad. It's pretty snug. It's got that going for it. So, you know, like again, you can do the sort of the flight pose, but again, it keeps falling apart. You can do the flight pose. Okay, so here's Superman in flight. And I guess if you're kind of having him sort of flying and looking down, you know, looking off to the side or something, that's, you know, but again, every time I try to move this figure, it falls apart. The paint on his face is a whole other conversation though. On the authentic figure, the eyes are very piercing, the eyebrows are, you know, proportionate to the face. The original one looks like Christopher Reeve. And while I think you can see that it's supposed to be Christopher Reeve, if you look at the paint, the eyes aren't all that piercing, although the eyes themselves are a pretty decent paint job. But these eyebrows, man, they are janky. They're in the wrong spot. This one you can't really see here, but this one over his left eye is actually rather, I don't know, kind of faded out a little bit. The one on the right eye doesn't sort of go to the end of the eye. I guess neither one of them do. The eyebrows are just, they don't look right. So hard fail on the paint job. But I did manage to have a little bit of fun with this guy as I was sort of playing with it when I took it out of the box. So here is a Superman standing like a little super teapot. This is him walking like an Egyptian. And here he is dancing to Michael Jackson's Thriller. And here he is trapped in a glass case of emotion. And here he is walking like a penguin. So despite the limitations of the figure, I did manage to have a little bit of fun, and my intention with these reviews is to always at the end show you what I've managed to do with the figure as far as toy photography is concerned. And while this figure is not my favorite figure by a long shot, it's actually pretty terrible, I did manage to get a decent shot out of it, inspired by the posing that I was doing as I was playing with the figure that I was just talking about a second ago. Here is my version of the world's greatest super team, Superman and Batman, on a rare, I don't know, maybe it's a Sunday afternoon and they're walking through the park, just having a little bit of downtime and being silly with one another, as I'm sure Batman and Superman do quite frequently. Unfortunately, the Penguin was also in the park and he was not impressed. So for overall sculpting, I give this a pretty solid 4.5 over 5. It looks pretty good. For paint, 3 out of 5. The paint job on the body is really good, especially the crest, but the face, it falls apart, and that's the focal point. Fabric, 2 out of 5, and I only give the 2 out of 5 for the crest. The cape doesn't pose, it's flimsy, not great. Articulation, 2 out of 5. You know, the knees bend, they twist back and forth, his neck doesn't go up, and he falls apart, which is why I give a 1 out of 5 for construction. And that's a very generous 1 out of 5. So if you like these videos, please subscribe, like, share, and check me out. I shoot my junk over at Instagram. And in the meantime, you don't need a fancy camera. You can use your phone, grab your toys, get out there and shoot your junk. See you next time.